Enough is enough. It's time for Cerberus to stop financing this destructive industry. To speak first, it's my pleasure, our pleasure, to introduce Congressman Charles Green.
You know, at the United Nations, they're going to try to get Syria to give up the weapons of mass destruction. And yet, we know, right in our own country, weapons of destruction are being made without regard to who's being killed, and there's only one reason for it, and that's money. When Judgment Day comes, how are we going to be looked at as a civilization that we can stand by and see people just for money making these weapons, while on the international level we find that whether we've lost over 5,000 men and women fighting to get rid of weapons of mass destructions, and we have thousands of young people dying every day because of gunfire. But the Pope has said to 60 million Catholics that it's time to look at those issues that are closer to home than just the couple that they have been talking about. And I really think the Pope is not just a Catholic leader, but a leader of a spiritual movement throughout the country. So I'm hoping that Catholics and Protestants, Jews and Gentiles, Muslims and Mormons would recognize that we can do a whole lot of things just from our heart. We can make politicians do what has to be done. We can make them function and do the right thing. We've had enough assassinations. We've had enough murders. There's no excuse for this to happen day after day, week after week, year after year, decade after decade. Young people being killed and guns still being made. So for each one of you, you are peacemakers. You are just as important as those people today at the United Nations. You're trying to save our children, our civilization, and our society, and it is hard to get through. But no matter what it takes, no matter where we are, let me thank you for your dedication, and especially the mothers who could walk away and just crying in sorrow, and yet they're here fighting so that other mothers and other families would not suffer the same way. I'm proud to be a part of this movement.
Next up, we're going to hear from Leah Gunn Barrett of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence.
Thank you and good afternoon. We're here today not only to demand that Cerberus make good on its promise to unload Freedom Group, but also to shine a light on the U.S. gun industry for three things: its appalling lack of social and corporate responsibility, its blatant disregard for product safety, and its vigorous obstruction of gun safety regulations. Let's start with corporate responsibility. Most U.S. firms want to behave responsibly. The goal of a socially responsible business is to produce products or services that are in the best interests of society. These include things like using safe materials in design and manufacture, making product safety paramount, reducing waste, and so on. Your business, customers, and society all benefit from this approach. Now let's look at the gun industry. Gun industry executives won't take voluntary measures that could reduce the risk of their product falling into the wrong hands. In fact, they practically steer guns into the illegal market by willfully ignoring red flags like one person buying several guns at one time, or numerous crime guns that are traced back to the same dealer. It doesn't care where the guns end up or who they kill, as long as they make money. And when a company tried to do the right thing, think of Smith & Wesson years ago, the industry ostracized it and boycotted their products and forced it to abandon the changes. And the gun industry has silenced whistleblowers that have called for reform. It it's failed in its duty of care when it comes to distributing its product with predictably devastating consequences. Each year, over 31,000 Americans are dead and nearly 100,000 injured at a cost of billions of dollars. It's hard to think of any other industry whose product causes such destruction. Second, gun makers have consistently rejected measures to make their products safer for consumers. Over the years, car makers have improved car safety and design dramatically, and cars are regulated so that death and injury are minimized. Think of driver's licensing, drunk driving legislation, safety glass, seat belts, child seats, collapsible steering columns, padded interiors, airbags, annual inspections, speed limits. And yet guns, the most lethal of all consumer products, are the last unregulated products. The Consumer Product Safety Commission regulates cribs and toy guns, but not real guns, not Bushmaster assault rifles. And gun makers won't make the most minimal changes to enhance consumer safety, such as chamber load indicators or security code locking devices, things that could save lives. Third, the gun industry has aggressively blocked safety legislation. It hides behind the fig leaf of the National Rifle Association, its industry group, and it gives the NRA millions of dollars to oppose the most basic and common sense gun safety legislation. Background checks, stiffer penalties for gun trafficking. The reason? Money, as the congressman said. One reason Cerberus gave for wanting to sell Freedom Group back in January is that after the Newtown tragedy, it didn't believe its role was to try to shape or influence the gun control policy debate. This is patently false. Freedom Group's chief executive, George Colatides, has run for the board of the National Rifle Association and serves on several NRA committees. And he publicly and strongly opposed the Manchin-Toomey background check bill. Here's what all those dollars have bought the gun industry. You can carry a loaded firearm into national parks, and you can tuck your rifle and ammunition into stowed luggage aboard an Amtrak train. 26 states have stand your ground laws. All 50 states have some form of concealed carry. Gun dealers, trade associations, and manufacturers are protected from civil liability and lawsuits. Finally, I want to say that Cerberus owns 94% of Freedom Group. It controls this company. It owns the ability to shape Freedom Group's message, its corporate decisions, and its products. It is Cerberus. The Cerberus has done nothing to make Freedom Group a more responsible company. Quite the opposite. It was the horror of Newtown and the unwelcome glare of publicity that made them promise to divest in the first place. Cerberus has a choice. It could either unload Freedom Group immediately, or it could be a leader and start showing some corporate and social responsibility that could transform the U.S. gun industry, lift it out of the shadows and into the sunlight, and save rather than destroy lives. Thank you.
So much. Please help us welcome Monty Frank of the Newtown Action Alliance.
Thank you, Congressman Rangel. Thank you for standing. I'd like to introduce Neil Heslin. Neil's son, Jesse, was murdered at the Sandy Hook Elementary School. The school just down the road from me on 1214. 4 days later, on December 18th, Cerberus made a promise to us. A promise that we heard in Sandy Hook. They issued an IOU, and we're here today to collect on that debt. In their press release, they told us, we were shocked and deeply saddened by the events. No words or actions can lessen the enormity of the event. They vowed to take action. They vowed to divest their interest in the Freedom Group. And now, 9 months later, they haven't sold a single share of Cerberus. That is a promise that they broke to us that we intend to remind them of, not just today, but every day from here on out until they make good on their promise. Yeah. But But it's worse than that. It's worse than that. Because instead of selling their interest in the Freedom Group, what did Cerberus do? It continued its investment, and the Freedom Group sold more guns than it has before. In its second quarter, its sales were up 51%. Instead of selling its interest in the Freedom Group, Cerberus allowed the Freedom Group to continue to fund the NRA. And the NRA in that time period has fought background checks, something that 90% of the American people want and deserve, because background checks will prevent further violence and further gun deaths. So this is what I asked Cerberus. Do you really think that we would forget about your promise after the Freedom Group's Bushmaster assault weapon was used to murder 20 of our children and 6 of our educators? Do you think that we would forget how the Freedom Group's Bushmaster denied our children's most basic freedom? That freedom is to live? Do you think that we'd forget that every day since 12/14, our children live in fear, that they're scared to go to school because of what the Freedom Group's weapon did? Do you think that we'd forget that a similar weapon was used in the movie theater in Aurora and you did nothing after that event? No, we're not going to forget. You made a promise in Newtown 9 months ago. We expect you to keep it. Yes, and we're going to come here and we're going to remind you over and over again until you keep that promise. Now, the Newtown Action Alliance, with a broad coalition of Americans, was in D.C. last week. And we held a press conference in the Senate, and our representative, Elizabeth Esty, said to us, after 9 months, realizing that time doesn't heal all wounds, she said, time doesn't heal all wounds, action does. Well, it's time for action. We demand action. Sell the shares, keep your promise. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Hessel.
My name's Neil Hessel. My son is Jesse Lewis. Who was killed December 14th, Sandy Hook Elementary School. Many changes I feel that need to happen. Background checks, better school security. But there was a promise made then by Cerberus to sell their interest in Bushmaster, which was a weapon that took my son's life. This is a picture of Jesse, his first grade class picture. Only weeks before he lost his life in his first grade classroom. I'm here today to try to remind Cerberus of the promise they made and that they're letting my son Jesse down. And I hope that they will keep their promise to sell their interest in freedom. Much of the funds and the profits from the gun manufacturers find their way through the NRA, private investors, private individuals, into the politics and the Senate, Democratic committees, Republican committees. It's time for a change. And I hope the Cerberus will just hold their promise and not let the victims of Sandy Hook down. Thank you. I ask for your continued support for background checks. That'll help us. Thank you.
To say enough is enough. We have stood by and witnessed too many deaths.
I have worked with Harlem Mother Save, been to too many funerals, cried too much with the parents. We come today because we are not tired. If they think they can remain on their promise to us, we come today to tell them yes. We will come back here time and time again to make sure that they diverse. How can they say they are corporate sponsors, citizens, when they continue to deny children and our seniors to have a well-living place that our children can go out and play? Just on yesterday, we missed a tragic in Harlem. That's right. Kindergarten children on a bus with wild bullets flying right in the midst of a busy street. Enough is enough. We stand with these parents. We stand with all the groups, with our congressman who is fighting every day to make sure. We need to do one other thing, friends. We need to remember those who are standing in our way and punish them, that they won't have a seat in Washington where they disrespect us as citizens and our children. Thank you very much. This is not the first time here, and it won't be our last. Yes.
Thank you so much. Next up is Jamani Williams, the City Councilman.
Don't cry, don't apologize, that best. 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 This, I co-chair the gun violence task force in the City Council. And whenever I go to funerals, which is too many, I speak to the young men there and ask them how dare they walk past the parents who have lost their young person and say they're sorry and apologize, and will go out in the street and do the same thing that caused that young man to be in the grave. I'm asking the same thing to Cerberus. I'm asking the same thing to elected officials who continue to cry and apologize and call these parents who lose their young people and then do nothing about it. Continue the same behavior that will have to cause them to cry and apologize again. It's time to not just divest from Cerberus, but divest from the political capital that's being expended to keep these stupid laws on the books.
Yes.
The Second Amendment gives you a right to bear arms. It doesn't give you the right to have a rocket launcher to protect your home. Your need to have a Bushmaster XM15 has caused people to die. Jackie Hill lost her young people. 2 young people. He lost his young person. It gives cops in this city the excuse to kill unarmed young people like she lost. There are people dying every single day in Sandy Hook, in the Navy Yard, on the streets of Brooklyn, in the streets of Harlem, in Chicago, because of stupid laws that are on the books that people refuse to change, and people decide it's better to make money than to save lives. Guns cause death, period. If you're creating a gun, it's to kill something. That's the only purpose for it. When are we, as a country, going to be honest with ourselves? A new study came out that showed that the only thing that more guns in the society cause are more gun deaths. So all this crap that I'm hearing about is going to make a society safer, it is untrue and it is BS. And there are people dying, like they're really dying. It's not fake, we're not making it up. And your need for these stupid rifles and these stupid guns and these rocket launchers are causing real people to die. Black, white, brown, blue, purple. People in the United States are dying. And I wish Australia did decide to boycott. Because U.S. boycotts everybody. Maybe somebody should boycott us so we can learn a lesson. I'm really tired of the death. Like, it's amazing. You don't come back from death. I'm glad you get to go hunting or whatever you do with that. I don't know how you hunt with an Uzi, but whatever. There are people dying here. And these guys, I don't know if it's worse to say nothing or to lie on the back of a tragedy and decide it's better to make more money. I can't remember what state it was, but I know there were some elected officials who lost their jobs for doing the right thing when it comes to gun laws. Colorado, we need to give them a round of applause for standing up for what's right. And right now we need elected officials to say that their seat is not more important than the tens, the 20s, the hundreds, the thousands of people that are dying in this country. And until we can do that, nothing's gonna stop. But we ain't gonna stop either. We are not gonna stop and watch people dying. Cerberus will be here every day from Newtown. I support the Occupy movement. I hope I see them loud and clear here, because we're gonna do whatever it takes to make sure our people stop dying. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moms demand action for gun sense in America.
Yeah, Kim.
Hi. Thanks for coming, everyone, and working so hard on this issue. My name is Kim Russell. I'm a survivor of gun violence, and I am a very proud and hardworking member of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We are an organization that was founded the day after the Sandy Hook massacre, when Shannon Watts, a stay-at-home mother of 5 in Indiana, couldn't find a Mothers Against Drunk Driving for gun reform. She created one using social media in her kitchen. We are a nonpartisan grassroots movement of American mothers and supporters demanding new and stronger solutions to lax gun laws, to loopholes and policies that for far too long have jeopardized the safety of our children and families. We are demanding action not only from state and federal legislators, but also from companies and educational institutions to establish common sense gun reforms. For decades, those who stand to profit from easy access to guns have controlled this conversation about gun violence. And as mothers, we've had enough. Our country experiences a mass shooting every few months. Nearly 8 children die every day. These are our children. They're your children. They're your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren. These people depend on us to keep them safe. Our grassroots in 9 months has grown to over 100,000 members with a chapter in every state, and we are still growing. We will not relent until we have done everything we can to make a safer America for our children. It is our obligation as parents, and it is our obligation as human beings. We cannot let the proliferation of mass shootings desensitize us. This cannot become our new normal. From the Navy Yards in D.C. to the basketball courts of Chicago to the Elks Lodge in Michigan, we have to say that you can depend on us to fight for a safer America, free of preventable gun violence. In just over 9 months, our members all over the country, most of whom are accidental activists like me, have hosted rallies, we've testified at town hall meetings, we've met with our legislators, we've made countless phone calls. Many of us have traveled to Washington, D.C. to stand with other victims and tell our own tragic stories again and again while holding 8x10 glossy photographs of our dead loved ones. We have stood with the brave legislators in Missouri, California, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Colorado, and Maryland. Most recently, we convinced Mr. Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, and his board of directors to change their policy. No guns in their stores nationwide. This is not easy work, but the lives of our families depend on it. All of this work done in 9 months by volunteers, by mothers who are teachers, artists, caregivers, gun owners, conservatives, investors, stockholders. I ask Cerberus today, what have you done these past 9 months? On December 18, 2012, 4 days after one of our nation's most horrific mass shootings in Newtown, Connecticut, Cerberus agreed to divest from the Freedom Group. The Freedom Group of which they own 94%. The Freedom Group, who is responsible for the manufacture of the Bushmaster XM-15 assault rifle and 30-round ammunition magazines used by Adam Lanza. The Freedom Group, who also owns Remington, who made the gun Aaron Alexis used at the Navy Yard shooting. The Freedom Group was also recently honored by the National Rifle Association for giving them $1 million or more. And guess where that money goes? That money is spent on the lobbying efforts of the NRA to block any meaningful legislation to prevent gun violence. It is spent on bullying tactics to recall 2 of our brave state senators in Colorado who voted to protect their communities. And yet Cerberus has not sold 1 penny of their holdings in the Freedom Group as profits continue to soar. What happened to the truly compassionate corporate conscience that led Cerberus to consider divesting from the Freedom Group after the tragedy in Newtown? Your families are depending on you, Cerberus, to do the right thing, and as a mother, I am imploring you to do the right thing. Cerberus, it is time to stand up. We ask that you no longer profit from senseless gun violence. Sell your holdings in the Freedom Group as originally promised. As mothers, we teach our children to stand by their word. We expect the same of our corporations. We know to praise good behavior, and we know to offer consequences to bad decisions. If Cerberus fails to act quickly and responsibly, then we will encourage investors to divest themselves from their holdings in Cerberus. When Cerberus turned its back on its initial instinct to walk away from the gun industry, they turned their back on the safety of our families. But be sure, our voices are loud, our resolve is firm and long-lasting, and we will do everything we can to make sure that our families are safe. Please, Cerberus, let us depend on you to do the same. Thank you.
Yes.
Next up is Jackie Rowe Adams in Harlem State.
Thank you. You know, as she said, I'm Jackie Rowe Adams, and I'm a mother who lost 2 kids to gun violence. So I stand here before you today to say I didn't lay down and give up. I stood up and said, enough is enough. Yeah. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. I can't bring back my 2 kids, but I can certainly continue to do education and prevention. I want to thank Million Hoodies, New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, Moms in Demand, and so many others. I am so proud that our congressmen and our city council task force person and Hazel Dukes and so many of you, and God bless Newtown! God bless Newtown! God bless Newtown! I am proud to stand here and be able to say that. I am sick and tired of all of these manufacturers and NRA making money off our murdered kids. They are making money off our murdered kids. And I am proud to see so many of you out here. We have to continue to raise our voices. We have to continue to stand up, and we must not be afraid. We must not be afraid. You know, I spoke to LaPierre from the NRA way before Newtown shooting, way before any other shootings occurred, and I said, y'all are killing our kids. I was at one of their conventions, and he said, I am so sorry. But is he sorry? No! Is he sorry? No! And now they're still making money. So we must raise our voices loud. We must continue to be heard. And we must go to Washington, stay in Washington, and hold those senators and Congress feet to the ground that's not supporting our background checks. Our children are dying every day. So I want to say, fired up and ready to go. Fired up and ready to go. Fired up and ready to go. Thank you.
Million Hoodies movement is proud to stand on the side of America's parents and families who have lost loved ones to senseless gun violence. The gun lobby led by the NRA is a serious force to be reckoned with, just as the apartheid government was a serious force to be reckoned with. But it's my firm belief that their strength pales in comparison to the strength and determination of America's mothers and fathers of all races and religions who have come together today to demand action on this issue, to protect America's children and families, and to say no more senseless deaths.
No more.
We're a country of laws and constitutional rights, but we're also a country of common sense. The NRA have seemed to forget that Thomas Paine's common sense is one of the founding principles of our country and a critical value shared by all Americans. Our country is bleeding. As any doctor and any common sense citizen will tell you, the first thing you do is you stop the bleeding. So today, we urge all Americans, primarily college students, to join us in invoking the call for divestment, a strategy born out of the anti-apartheid movement, which has since led to the downfall of so many evil conglomerates, tyrants, and industries. We ask every American to join us in helping to stop the bleeding once and for all. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. We have one last speaker, and then we're going to ask the Newtown family to deliver the letter. Rabbi Andrew Hoffman.
Hello, everybody. Speaking on behalf of my own synagogue in Brooklyn, Congregation Beth Elohim, and faith communities of every faith in this city and across the country, who demand that Steven Feinberg, the head of Cerberus Capital, divest from the ownership in the Freedom Group. In the tradition that the Jewish people celebrate this week during the Sukkot festival, we learn from the book of Ecclesiastes, the great phrase, Tov Shem Mishem and Tov, that a good name is better than fine oil. And so we ask you, Steven Feinberg, to take the great step and to reestablish your good name by divesting in the Freedom Group. Ecclesiastes also teaches us that there is a season set for everything, a time for everything under heaven. There's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and uproot, a time to slay and a time to heal, a time to weep and laugh, to seek, to loathe, a time to make war and a time to make peace. But we stand here today because there were so many who went before their time, who went too soon, who fell in the split second at the bullet's blast between light and darkness, between life and death. How do we honor those beloved fallen? With respect and with love. Ecclesiastes asks, after this litany of times in which are supposed to be taking place in their purpose, what value then can a man of affairs get from what he earns? What value, Steven Feinberg, do you get at Cerberus by continuing to invest in weapons of mass destruction? We ask you, Steven Feinberg, head of Cerberus, head of the Freedom Group, we ask you, what value do you really gain from the hundreds of millions in profits earned by the blood of innocent people? What value do you get from the profits of weapons made to kill quickly and efficiently and without feeling? What value do you get from assault weapons, from dead children, from grieving mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers? We stand here today to ask you, Steven Feinberg, to redeem your good name. Tov Shem Mishev Tom. A good name is better than fine oil. A good name is better than profits. A good name is better than money. A good name is better than gain. The prophet Micah gave us great advice as he preached in the hills of Jerusalem more than 2,000 years ago. God will judge those who walk along the paths where they walk, if they walk in my instruction, God says. And what does he instruct through the prophet Micah? That they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. That nation shall not lift up sword against nation. They shall never learn war again. Everyone under his grapevine, everyone under a fig tree, in peace. A classroom for every child, in peace. A job for every mother and father in peace. A home, a meal, a bed for all in need. Tov, Shem, Mishem, and Tov. Redeem your good name, Stephen Feinberg. Invest your profits in people, not guns. In young hearts and minds, not bullets and bombs. Not in the violent and darkened past of mankind's evil ways, but in the bright light and hopeful horizon for a peaceful future for us all. Redeem your good name, Stephen Feinberg. Redeem your good name. Tov, Shem, Mishem, and Tov. Amen. Amen.